season check, then they close it. Something goes wrong, something breaks, something. There's too much chemical, acid, chlorine, all those things. They're on the hook for all of it. They're responsible for doing it if we agree in essence.
That's different from what I would say. Well turned that way. That kind of thing.
That's a totally separate. That's a separate issue.
I'm not disputing transfer of funds. I'm just saying it's not put in properly. Well, and it's not working. So
I have a question too, because warranty, I keep saying, expired within a couple of weeks. And I've never heard that if people saying, shouldn't there have been something in the specs about warranty when that starts, how that works? I can't believe this was just open to interpretation and say that. I mean, I'm with Gary. I think it's crazy. Someone should be held accountable. I don't think it has to do with city negligence or inexperience.
and Tammy, I wasn't. I didn't have anything to do with working. They did not put it in properly. There is a working. That's just.
That's why they're saying they can't
I'm
fix
sorry.
it. Well, that's what they're saying. They say they can't fix it. Right, Steve. They can't fix it because it's out of warranty. They won't fix it because it's out of warranty.
It's all been just
I know, right?
when it comes to project. So this is primary it's all he's the primary contractor is on the hook for everything. Then the other subcontractor mess things up, bring them all in and let their market turn up to pay when somebody's going to pay when it's not going to.
And, from a defense of the city side, none of the pool committee, none of the council at that time, nobody's certified, none of, just like us, none of us are pool experts. So if they took us in there and said, hey, it's working, you see water flowing, it's working, you would have had no idea. So everybody that would have been involved in that side from the city aspect, there would have been no way of knowing whether the pump was wired backwards or things were installed correctly because none of us are experts. That's why we were paying very large amounts of fees to the company to get it right. They didn't. Yeah, I completely agree. There's a difference between manufacturing and just general wear and tear or use. So manufacturing, we hired you to build it a certain way. You said it was built a certain way. It's clearly not built the way that it's supposed to be. That's the issue. Working so covers something else. Manufacturing. So yes, there's probable action that we can take. At this point, we have to make these repairs and replacements, or we will have a full car next season. This is a wonderful way to start off the council meeting. But none of which is any of my fault, so I'm okay. Yeah.
Areas random from year to year.
Yeah, right?
Never heard of successful Bible.
Oh, speak of that.
It was in 5 red pen.
You want some M&M peanuts? Look, I brought snacks tonight, so everybody should be happy. Is there any other discussion? How are we moving this? We're just voting on this as one massive. Is there any other discussion?
We can answer the term these two. We'll be giving them those. See, it's obvious. Also,
They said, so they can't do it's a bad idea. Good idea. All right. Is there any other discussion? Having a motion and a second, all those in favor of passing the budget resolution as submitted, please signify by raising your right hand. Passes unanimously. Nope.
I just want this is a number 2 bid recommendation. Seal bids for financing to 2025 trucks. Price 10 a.m. Results. United Bank Premier 6%. 6%. Years 7%. 8 cents. Country roads leasing 7%. Year 7%. 6. Lincoln Bank year 6%. 67 year 5%. 60%. Reason being is country funding the project budget city's general fund 1-65.
You will have a motion to accept the United Bank bid proposal as submitted. Motion and a second. Any discussion? No other discussion. All those in favor?
We know when that goes. We know when that goes. It may not be. It may take, I understand that I'm saying banks. It may be too.
think that's nice, but you're just looking at a 3-year loan. Difference. I think to me, truck traffic.
Maybe this season.
I would say Rick Adams has been in this business for a long time. He already
Sounds like a good answer. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of accepting the bid from United Bank for 3-year, 3.65% interest rate, they signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. All right, that is all of the actual business at hand. We're now going to move into what the main point of tonight's meeting was, and it's a discussion, no decisions. We're not seeking any decisions or any commitments uh, from council, but just simply to have open discussion about where we believe we're going forward as a city, what commitments we feel that we should potentially make in funding and supporting the development of Spencer's Landing, to go over ideas and or suggestions, and just have a general conversation. We all may fare very differently about that, but that's our general topic.
Just as a point of order, for me, do we have to have a motion?
No, I don't think we need a motion. Thank you for asking. So, with that, we have representatives from Thrasher here. Lindsay is here. Russ is breaking his microphone. I'm here. Russ is here. And tonight's just going to be general conversation. So, council, feel free to, if you want to ask any of them questions, you are welcome to do so. So, let's open the floor and let's have some discussion. Who would like to go first? No? Yes, you may. This is the second time we got to see each other today. Sure. Take a few minutes, and if you mind stepping to the podium.
My name is Marcus Graney, project manager for Thrasher. We had a couple of meetings weeks ago to discuss steps forward and what moves ahead in pursuit. The funding for this project, as we put together, had reasons segments at the park. We had general funds, which had to work trails, millions ahead. It's very massive community assets. We had river access, which was involved in an additional parking area. We have a multi-use space, which is a 20,000 square foot area, stage, restrooms, and then we also had a some shaded. So one of the things that we've been talking about, trying to reason this is huge, to just give you some general thought. So this isn't necessarily recommended. This isn't numbers, but I wanted to give you some very specific things to facilitate the discussion. Different approaches to Spencer's Landing and scope as to and how the capital stack to implement that scope. Um, funding right now, especially the project the size like all of this project, we're at $16.5 million are in economic conditions to implement the entire map. I don't think that anybody's really interested in putting in $16.5 million for Chile, but if you're going to do that, how are you going to? There's going to have to be the city itself, and then where do we finish out that capital stack? So some combination of grants, donations from foundations, donations, and other mechanisms like financing. Um, so that's kind of what this is. It's broken down into two different ways to. You go all in. One of the things that keeps coming up in conversation with this is the desire to have swings and really start building the asset out there where you can host festivals, host fairs, you can host concerts, just general events in the space that you can put out. Things to generate traffic and generate tourism in the area and helps to create that multi-use space. Big things I think that came out of community engagement. That's planned. And it seems like one of those things where money you put into that is putting your results back towards economic results. Um, and so if we just kind of focused on developing that, because you already have a parking area that's developed, you have additional area in town. So you just look at developing new space. That's the second option here, where it's $8.5 million. There was a point with this, and we can kind of go over this whole process. We estimated $8 million. The reason these numbers here is taking into account as we go forward in contracts, increased costs for steel structures, additional paving. There's things. This is discussion points that's on the floor here. The rest of it taking one of the things we should budget set. Those are the types of things that you guys are discussed. Another strategy that housing is just focusing on space and a place where you can have housing. The geotextile fabric structure being housing out there. It doesn't have to have a staged function. You can host pre-staged schools. You can host your festivals. You can host your fairs. We can host community events. It can be really hot. Many receptions, reunions, and those kind of things. And that's what they're saying. If the city pursued just building that and infrastructure, you can pursue that stack that as construction pursues. Then you can have a success story that you have generated some that success of some pursuit nations, and sort of so on the backside of it too, kind of skip over the idea of space. These are kind of looking at what's focused on general purpose space. It's take a minute rated community asset and it's interested in tree up space recreate and use those communities. And then river access is your best one out there. River goes to the top of the city. It's your and the last one was taken by Fresco creating that's just focusing on this is passive. You just go in just you have works like that in the city. That's kind of fun. So it's this here's
first of all, major kudos to Marcus because number one, he is not making this very thorough that he created. So
I have snacks.
but one thing that keeps coming up, and I just want to be transparent about it, is federal and state grant dollars right now are almost non-existent. So during COVID, I think people got a little spoiled with the influx of cash that went for CARES Act were able to be used for social purposes or recreational purposes. Those have pretty much all dried up recently. So under the current administration, they're looking at every dollar that goes out. There really aren't much grants that are available. And then under the Morrissey administration, he's essentially put a halt on most what I would call fund money grant dollars. He's reevaluating what goes out at the state level. So one thing that we have looked at, and Amy and Rod joined me on a conversation with the USDA, there's a community facilities loan that could be pursued. You can do it over 35 years. It's at a 5.25% interest rate. You can finance the entirety of the project. They did tell us that they get a very, very small amount of grant dollars, but they disperse them out in $50,000 increments so they can spread them out further. So instead of doing one or two projects that are high impact, they spread out small amounts of funds. So I just want to be upfront with you all about why this cash stack looks the way it does, and is it more grant focused right now, and it's because the availability is just not there.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm sure if during we have discussion, I'm sure council members may ask you questions. Who would like to go first?
Thank you both. I can't see them, but thank you guys for coming out and appreciate the presentation. This does help give perspective. I guess I'll be the first to kind of say my thoughts, um, given kind of what we heard, the current grant grant funding might not be available for ticket items. And I think there's a definite wanting to see some development down at Spencer's Landing. I would be very much in favor of us trying to take on some of these lower ticket items and maybe pursue some funding for possibly getting a dock installed, getting some walking paths, getting trees planted, some restroom facilities, maybe a shelter, and wait day for interest rates to interest rates come down, maybe a couple of years past, the grant money becomes readily available, something we can dig into and start really looking at getting this large ticket item, the multi-use space that everybody seems to want, and getting something constructed like that. Anyway, after hearing the presentation and understanding the money isn't as freely flowing as it was a couple of years ago, and I think, like I said, wanting to see some development down there, I'll be very much in favor of getting some smaller ticket items done this year.
I have one question for clarification. When you say bonding and financing, that's basically where we borrow the money and have to pay it back. So that money is combined with the city's cash commitment. So, for example, when the low ticket item. Bonding finances 1 to 1.5 million, and city cash commitment is actually at 2.5 million.
So essentially, yes. So I think how Marcus was spelling this out was, think of it as the down payment from the city portion where it says city cash in, and then the bond could be financed over a period of time, be it 30 years, and make your payment lower. And then I think the thought process, and Rod and Amy and I and Jack had spoken, would be to look at if you could build the multi-use space, the income from that, once it started to be generated, would go towards paying down a bond payment.
So we finance it over 30 years, over 28 years. For example, we found the next 7 city councils taking away their ability to do other things they want.
You're not incorrect. I will add one thing that I didn't say earlier, and I want to touch on. Obviously, there is the availability of federal earmark dollars. The application for that typically opens in the spring, so that is an avenue that can be taken as well. The sweet spot for those is around $1 billion. You can apply for more. Typically, my rule of thumb is ask for 5, they give you 1. But that is something that could be applied for over a number of years, but there's no guarantee.
As to my comments.
Okay.
Yes, you'll be back.
We'll get you a story.
I was just going to give my comment on that. I think we have to be careful about spending money that we don't have and not having matching commitments. I think that if we can get a donor that wants to put a certain amount of money down or a grant that requires matching funds, then I think that's a wise use of city money. My thought is that just taking city money and doing this cash commitment on financing, when you don't have matching or greater than matching funds, may not be the best idea. And the only reason I think that is because you can get free money based upon the money you put out. Since for every dollar we spend, we get $3 worth of stuff. And I think this might be the investment. And if for every dollar we spend, we get $1 worth, then we're competing with other things that the city needs. An example would be I have made it clear that our foundation, Ditson Foundation, if we want a full-size soccer field, we would put up as much as $1 million. The city had matching money and we had, like for example, it's going to cost $3 million to have a full-size artificial turf soccer field. If the city puts up $1.5 million and they raise $500,000, we can put $1 million in it. I know that's not going to happen today or this year even because the Vienna recreation hasn't got into deciding whether they want to do that, raise the money or not. So I'm not saying that I'm holding out for that. I'm just saying that if we can get other sources of money by the use of city money, we should do that. We have other sources of money. We don't want to raid our cash reserves, which we're going to need if something bad happens in the city. And we're already, I don't know how much we're still going on this.
We do. Amy, do you have?
Yes. So when they did the pool project, that meant there's $500,000 a year that we can't spend of city money as the council because that's already been committed. I hesitate to do that going forward and making it so the next city council can't do things the citizens think should be done. I want this project to be done. They have no doubt about it. The vision of Vienna, the whole riverfront project, I want it to be done. I just think that we have to grant some financing and donors that want it to be done also. I don't think it will just be us. Thanks for putting up with me.
So like that, how Jeff, your question, you mentioned the earmarks, right? I know we had applied for an earmark, didn't receive, concrete, what needs to go.
I stopped. We actually did get that after all.
Not from that source.
Not from that source.
Yeah, that's news to me.
Well, we just found out. Sorry to
Okay,
steal your thunder,
Man.
Chad. I'm sorry.
That was not on the agenda, but since she has let the rabbit out of the hat,
I did not mean to
Well,
steal
that's
your
not a
thunder.
part of successor liability.
Yeah,
so,
that's
or
not
successor credit. Okay.
I can accept this one. We did in May request funds that were not anywhere linked to previous request. We were first denied any of those funds through a very, nice letter. But then circling back around to it, uh, we did get the thumbs up that we got a substantial amount uh, that will go towards the remediation of the concrete rebar on the industrial side of landfill property, which we are all very excited about. And we want to make that happen. That was from a request that we made in May through Senator Congressman's office, and he was gracious enough to push through, and we got approved. It was included in this year's budget, so we should, if things track the way that they should, we should see those funds in 3 to 4 months ish. And we're already game planning specs and details on what needs to be done so we can ready to advance forward and make that happen and follow through on the commitment that we have all made in the city. So I'm very happy. Yeah, thanks a lot for.
I'm sorry. I felt like I would look like a liar if I came back later. We just found out, and we haven't gotten the official grant. So that was Chad's news to share, and I stole it. So
I've got some things.
go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
And I forgot to thank you also.
So, great news. And so, with regard to those these particular purposes, so with respect to the type of recreational development here, how and also like since we're playing poker here in Vienna, what would you be betting that we would be able to achieve in terms of your mark, which is a little different than the grants that we talked about?
Correct. I think we have a better shot at getting an earmark in the future, and I'll tell you why. When we apply for earmarks, you apply separately through Senator Capito's office, Senator Justice's office, and Congressman Ford. So when I submitted for Spencer's Landing, I submitted 3 separate earmark applications on behalf of Spencer's Landing. Because in the past, what was done is the 3 of them, especially when Congressman McKinley was in office, the 2 senators and McKinley would get together and they would pick a project. So it's not like you can get 3 different ones for the same county, if that makes sense. So we submitted all to them. I think moving forward, in my opinion, and the feedback I got, at least from Senator Capito's office, they said the earmarks this year were incredibly competitive, and I think from the Spencer's Landing side, it wasn't far enough along. So all I had at the time of submission was that rendering right there that I could turn in, and I didn't have anything to say X amount of money has been committed or this is the first step that's going to be taken. It was kind of preliminary. So I think moving forward, especially tonight, if you all decide
segue to my next point. This ties into what Harry was saying as well. Harry said, well, if we're going to have skin in the game, we only want to do that if we've got some magic. So this is a chicken and egg, right? And so the questions that I think in looking at this, and we've been talking about spiritual planning, is what of, first of all, I think council needs to consider what of, the hands dealt we want to play, or what do we think is a city? And because you've got, like you said, basics. If you go to the tree of kind type, okay, that I take it that you mean that that's kind of like the city just committing to doing that, versus saying instead, look, we're going to put up, if we turn to straight flush, right, 8.5 million to get the mixed use venue with the stage and then that shot, and you say at this point perhaps the city will be willing to put up, this is 3 to 4 million, say 2.5, say that we are poised to do this. Now let's go look for individuals that we can speak to and say, listen, we're ready, we'll commit, and we have whatever support it would take to do that, but we need help, right? And so, in terms of grants, foundations, and so because we did have this meeting recently, Marcus mentioned, these aren't certain findings, these are things that were discussed in this meeting, right? These types of approaches. And so I think for us, we've had the conversation, okay, is it like, the strait, it's 5.5 million for, more of a boat dock, river access type. Right? So it goes to also what Harry said about, what does the community want, right? We've got, an opportunity with the Beechler Foundation, which is a great opportunity for a size soccer field, but that would also involve a significant commitment from the city, involved with that versus dollars basically competing with the development of Spencer's Landing, right? And then if it is Spencer's Landing, is it river access? Is it the multi-purpose venue that would be, and I think in our surveys, it was the multi-purpose facility that was, and that kind of gives you the ability to, first of all, generate some revenue to try and support if you look at the bond piece of it. So I think that if we start saying, where do we want to start the development first? I already know what my opinion is. My opinion is that it's the multi-use, and it's trying to pitch something in the terms of the 8.5 million to do that big piece, be able to put them revenue generator, whatever earmarks. There were also some good ideas in this meeting about approaching more than just the foundations. Got interest in naming rights and different. A lot of opportunity here, and we got a lot to share in terms of different approaches. So my piece is, my opinion is, I like straight flush. I'm just telling you that right now. And I like the roll. The straight flush, I understand would be story. But the city maybe saying, okay, what would be our first development choice? And then secondly, what would be, the best avenues to pursue funding this funding method? Make the ball and start saying, we get start making this. So anyway, so that's why we understand here, Mark, you said unleaded wrestling. That's really my whole spiel. Very comments.
75% is committed resources to just paving the streets. And the city of Vienna is and say, I don't want to pay. I will be in favor of bringing up the city, see what happens. Start seeing them cash out revenue. See, I personally, my renters, that ain't happening. We all have a vision. Everybody needs to think about the future. At the same time, we gotta be practical.
I mean, there's a lot of good options, and I think there's downsides to this. I'm more in line. I really think bring things because we have that. I guess I have a question, Mr. Matt. Fundraising, say like state launch, this is funding donation fundraising. How aggressive can you what kind of time frame do you consider reasonable to be able to raise that?
Come up, Jack.
What Jack?
See what cities like that.
Well, in this example, the city cash controls and the grant is 2 million and bonding and financing to 1 to 2.5. So I mean there is a significant city commitment to this. It's laid out in this scenario. So I would think that would satisfy some of that. Looking at
So one thing that came up in a conversation that Jack and I had with a private donor, in this particular example, they were willing to give 100,000, but they said we're not going to be the first one in. So to Jack's point, I think this is just thrown out. This is something to give you an example of what it could look like. To Marcus's point, these are not hard numbers. He wasn't, sharpening his pencil and looking at the city's finances maybe and saying this is what could be done. We don't know, the three of us. But to that point, I respect what everyone's saying, but in reality, it is a city investment because this is something that the city will own. It is something that a private business, frankly, would not make money on. They're not going to make money building a multi-use facility at Spencer's Landing. I think it'll be utilized, but someone wouldn't be able to fund it and make a profit. So I think it will have to come from the city. I don't know, and that's what you're discussing tonight, what that looks like. And I think There are people willing to give. I can't give you an amount because, frankly, I don't think Jack's pounded the pavement super hard after the first couple where what's the city going to put into it and then come back to us. But that's kind of the feedback that we've got.
And I think the city is committed to this. I think we all want to see it. I think especially with WEP and ITC going in, bringing people in, businesses in, I think that there is a real collaborative outcome to this. You know, development's been successful at the same time that WEP and ITC is getting off the ground. So, you know, I'm real committed to it. I don't know what that looks like. I'm just talking, and I know this is not that, you know, when it says city cash commitment and bonding and financing, but then we have a grant of $2 million donation for $1.5 million. I just wanted to know how feasible that is. And I mean, I think some of you have had more experience. I don't have experience in this. So, what are we looking at as far as fundraising this amount and getting grants? What kind of time frame
I think
can we expect?
One thing that was discussed in the meeting that Jim alluded to earlier was certain portions of this. So, for example, and Harry knows this better than anybody, foundations have certain things that they donate to. Some it's health, some it's children, some it's, you know, economic development, whatever that is. So the conversations in the room were, could you get Foundation X, which I'm making this up, to donate towards the playground splash pad portion? Or could you get Foundation Y to give to the walking paths because it's getting people out and moving and walking? That's the game plan that we discussed taking. Again, we haven't approached any of those folks because they're going to ask what the city's portion is. And I know that's it's quite literally what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? And I know it's hard for you all to be able to say, we'll put X amount into it and hope to raise Y, because the reality is it's not guaranteed that you raise Y. We don't know the timeline. It might take a year, it might take 2 years. I can't tell you that right now, unfortunately. But what I can tell you is every year that you don't build this multi-use facility, it's going to get more expensive. So that 8.1 billion number is going to be 8.6 next year, and it's going to be 9. It's just the way it works.
So your office is committed to going out with grants, right? Yes.
So our office is assisting Jack with grants, and then obviously Tony is the city's grant expert. But I think any grant that we're made aware of or that, you know, we can pursue, we either have or will do that.
I kind of wanted to hear from Tony too. Did they give you the green sheet? Did they give you the give her a copy?
No pressure, Tony.
Yeah,
you
no
just got to
pressure. Do
raise
you
like
mind?
$4 million in grants.
So, do you mind speaking to the current climate? And, because I think we are saddled with bad timing here, right? In terms of we've been working for this for years, and then all of a sudden we're ready to pull the trigger. Something difficult. Yeah. So, yeah.
And anybody knows the alarm she's doing. We don't know what you pulled over there.
It's time to go, yes.
Now, again, that's why I brought snacks. I've been for the long haul. We need to be.
No, I appreciate that. But no, I think when Rasher is correct that it's not the best time for grants. I mean, they're out there, but it's going to take a lot of effort and timing to get it. It's not like we used to be able to write a grant and it's guaranteed to get it the first year you write it. Many grants you have to write 2 times and ask you to get the possible response.
So, you know, grants we received, the 5 grants as an example, back, we had a match.
Right.
And then also talking about what we were talking about, you know, so if we were trying to kind of budget this or say the city would some amount, would you advise us to say, you know, going to take whatever $500,000 and set it aside for matches for grants that I see that you might because if you apply for it, you got to be prepared, right, to step up and match. So are you, in this situation under something, able to say, sitting here is what I see on the radar. We're looking, I mean, realistically, 2 years to do this fundraising piece and everything that's going on. I'm just wrong. Just false. Just ask, I mean, in everything that we're trying to do and realizing the city at least has some interest in advancing this project. What's our about 24 months?
Um, as far as grants, the city is starting street violation, and that was a grant that match. So looking at Spencer's access there, apply for another black grant. The nice thing is that they did away with the match. That's correct. A year after we got the.
Of course they did.
So we don't have to worry about that. What is likely that we get another black grant or another project as Wall Street is complete?
I mean, we are going to be putting in another application. The only concern might be that the amount we're asking for is almost half of what the state has. A lot of it's going to depend on how many other applications they
And
have.
a good spend it would be for the state right here in Vienna, West Virginia.
Right. So a lot of that depends on what other applications they receive. We also have to put in a grant to ARC for $2 million. But again, whatever project it is that you say you're going to do, you have to show them where your match is coming from, where the rest of it is coming from. $2 million wouldn't even, touch that entire project. So that's why you have to divide it into pieces and, select the section that you want.
Thank you. Well, this don't mean anything. I'm not the best poker player in the world. Better hand I get, bigger my eyes get. So I don't have a poker face.
He just says, "Go fish." I have no dues.
So I'm going to start out with the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA. They talk about how much money we should have in reserves to be sent. They recommend it's 2 months regular general fund operating revenues. Get AAA rating and keep 30% your operating budget in reserves. Our reserves right now are half the reserves are at $10.78 million. Our annual budget is around $12 million. So the city is in a very, very sound financial situation. In fact, one could argue, and I've said this before in council, that city $10.78 million is actually too much money to have in reserves. That being said, I look at the cards that we have. The $3 to $4 million that the city cash commitment can make, I think that's easily attainable. Knowing that this is not going to happen, shovels start making this facility. It's going to take a while. But also, I know through years of little wisdom we have, is that any type of project that you sign on to, you've got to have skin in the game. You've got to show people that I'm serious about what we're doing. And I think for Jack, Lindsay, Tony, Marksy to help us as far as getting any type of money, that they foundations, any type of grants, I think, want to see what we have, what we're doing. In fact, it's already been evidence of that based on what Lindsay was saying. One company or foundation made them be the first to do, which almost tells me their poker is, and maybe they want to give, just saying. So I'm looking at straight pleasure. I'll be honest with you. Both of those are city cash commitments. I am not in favor of bonding financing at this point. I'm not saying I will never be in favor of that, but I think there's other ways, and one of those is earmarks that we can apply and continue to apply for those as we do these projects. I also know that I have no idea what this would be, but when you start making a commitment to this, and people, companies, businesses, they start getting excited. They start, quote unquote, buying into the project since the city is buying into it. And then they start thinking, okay, how about naming rights? And how much would we charge to get naming rights for the facility? There's some money there that we left. And I don't know how naming rights would work. I don't know if it's a 5-year commitment, 10-year commitment, and then it's rescheduled or renegotiated. I have no idea what that. I know. And the other thing which we have not talked about is maybe very brief, is mentioned. We underestimate, or we either council or some people don't believe the economic impact this would have to this area. And I said that because just a few examples. First time Spencer's Landing had an event down there. It was the Halloween by the piece, and it was that comment, Field of Dreams. If they build it, they would come. There was cars lined up. Friends of Vienna moved their event, the Freedom Festival, to Spencer's Landing, and thank goodness we had that extra parking over the 2-day event. Probably had 10 to 15,000 people there, maybe more. That is an economic impact to the city. Southeast Ohio, I don't know if it's Farmers Association or whatever, it's probably wrong, but they're estimating that the person would spend $35 on that event. I forked out $200 in no time because my 3 grandchildren want to do carnival, want to eat things like that. So I can't believe it's just $35. I think it's more than that. If you look at the Charleston Regatta, what they had, it was over $100 per spin, and I think it was close to $200. They're real proud of their stuff down there. They have multi-millions of dollars impact that it had. I believe that, and I think we as a city needs to understand there is a huge value in that economic impact that we have. And Rick Monison's here, he can probably speak better than me about what it does and how bands we get in or entertainment we get in. Probably lastly, this city is very unique in this area. and I've said this before, and there's out there, you got to believe that within a 50-mile radius, we have over 450,000 people live within 50 miles. That is significant because this area is prize jewel, the crown jewel of restaurants and retail. People comes here and eats and shop. And to make that point more important, more bold than what it is, we just recently sold the Grand Central Mall, and we have it's pending. No, sorry, it's pending. We got a company come in and it's wanting to invest in this area. I think that speaks volumes. I think that speaks a long-lasting relationship in this area. So I played my cards. They were all out on the table. And maybe I should have said something. Maybe I said something I shouldn't have said, and I apologize for that.
There's no wrong answer.
We got to move on this. We need to make the commitment because it's going to probably take a year or two because we've got work to do. We've got to, once this is committed by the city, we've got to get foundations involved, grants involved, and earmarks involved to get this up and rolling. So I will yield the rest of my time
If there was,
to Rick Modest and just give us an idea as far as economic impact and what what it would mean to the city if you could do that. Rick? And the other two, Lindsay and Marcus and Tony, thank you for your insight.
Being very council.
You know, you've been in getting bands in this area for a long time, and not just for this area, but I mean, I think you're well known in the industry. You know, when they mention your name, you know, you seem to get good entertainment in. So I just, if you happen to know about any economic impact it would have, or you know, what this area can offer.
We actually do, my company RMA Presents, we actually do events in 15 states, and we actually do more outside of this area. But probably the most common type of facility that is in West Virginia that would be comparable to this is the Rivian Theater, which we're heavily involved in. And they do a very good tracking, reaching out to the top financial groups. But they do event, they run it internally, and they run it all summer. Not only their own series, but also secondary promoters do ticketed events there, and then fairs and festivals and it's just held there about a week ago. And so there's a combination of paid, there's a combination of fair festivals, a combination of free events that are backed by foundations, that are being foundation. Actually, it's they're heavily invested. But you can get downtown Morgantown and go into restaurants and see places are packed, the hotels are full, downtown streets are parking lots are full. There is a residual overflow that does flow down to the people that are in business. Vendors, the truck vendors, et cetera, they're all making money, they're all paying taxes, and helps keep them afloat. And obviously, there is a revenue flow back in via the tax dollars both from the state and to the city. And I would suspect the same thing would be true here. And I think we mentioned it the opportunity for economic stimulus. You know, what comes first? If you have this venue, multi-use facility, then does the area around it develop? Spencer's Landing Upper and the upper side of Spencer's Landing start to develop. So there's some opportunities, and there is a revenue flow stream that's not seen. It's not obvious to the general public, definition. I think it completely answers your question.
Rick, can I ask you a question? You've been in that business and have more expertise than anybody in this room. In your professional opinion, what is the likelihood that Vienna, in where we sit and what we would have, how would we compete, or what is our competitive level with Charleston, Cincinnati, Columbus, Morgantown? If we go all in this particular project, what is the likelihood that we're going to be competitive with those markets when it comes to bringing entertainment to this area?
Well, there's actually two avenues that venues like this would fall under. One, when it originally started out, was talking about a standalone amphitheater concert venue that would be running shows 2 or 3 times a week, essentially all summer long. And that is a very to open West Virginia in general is considered a secondary market. Big artists, Morgan Whalens, Taylor Swifts, et cetera, are not playing. They're not going to be playing as venue in Vienna. They're going to go to the larger markets where they can go into Bed Arena or whatever, have 18,000 seats, and sit there. People from West Virginia are going to go. So we're a secondary market. And that music market is basically controlled by monopoly. In reality, there's a handful of national promoters that own venues all over the country. They have those lots of major markets. Not to say that you can't succeed and occasionally have one of the lots of artists in a situation get a venue, rent it to secondary market. I think the way the committee ultimately went was looking at it as a multi-use facility and then the community at the stage and then the other pavilion space used for various festivals, et cetera, playground, water access, all those other things, which I see right now. And if you look at just in the state of West Virginia, every major city has a complex like that in some form or fashion. Some have had them for a long time. Charleston, the Live Plumbing Facility, I can't remember the name of it there. It has been there for a number of years. It's been very, very active. So there's two avenues, and I think the avenue the committee ultimately went with multi-use amenities in the city is the best use option. Give you the opportunity to move away.
So, from listening to what you're saying and what I've gathered through this course, we anticipate this being more of a fairs and festival style facility rather than a large concert venue with ticketing sales and various things.
I think that's a portion that can be done. It's an all of the above scenario. Yeah, you can do that. If you had controlled access and the ability to, limit people from just sitting on the roadway or the highway or listening or watching the show, you can control access and have a promoter. And it sounds like there's plenty of promoters that do that in secondary markets. But I was looking, and I think the committee was looking at the multi-use, where it's going to be busy every day of the week, ideally. Something. Ticketed events, there are venues in the state. The most interesting was Clarksburg Amphitheater. That was a venue. It's on the Alabama Parks and Recreation. I think they did it with earmarks, state, federal grants, some private fundraising, and also a recreation for the county and Harrison County. And it's operating completely by the Parks and Recreation, which is a sub unit of the city of and they do ticketed events their own time in a few regions.
Does anyone have any questions for
you seen the facility at Missoula, Montana? Yes. Missoula, Montana has the riverfront, essentially exactly comparable to what we're looking at here. I'm going to check. Now, they have things going on all summer. Since they have vendors there and have entertainment. So, basically, what you described. So maybe we should.
The only other thing I would add after COVID, a lot of cities, a lot of government, a lot of counties have dropped a lot of money into facilities, things like this, to draw people back out. There was a period of time kind of doing it, and the industry is still not recovered where it was 2008. And so there's a lot of still doing investing money to bring people out, stimulate spending money, getting out, and also to put on. Thank you.
It is. So, and we'll give time for some closing council comments after. So I intentionally chose to go last because I want to give this council, the city, and all those involved my opinion, looking at it from a 50,000 foot perspective. Is it quick? Take 2 minutes.
Well,
Or not?
and it kind of goes along. First of all, I just want to say I appreciate everybody's. I haven't heard parents yet, but everybody's given great input. And I'm really enjoying listening to this discussion. Um, we have a beautiful design, and I think council will be. And I love every aspect of this design. Whenever I look at it, I think of all these different pieces to this beautiful riverfront property that we're blessed with as a city. Um, and it got me thinking. We're looking at ways that the city can commit dollars to this project. So I was thinking, Mr. Metz, if you, I know I'm on the spot, would you mind stepping up to the mic? Um, and I just want to know, infrastructure wise, we're going to have to install sewer lines, we're going to have to install water lines. There's going to be power need to be ran to different facilities, and that's going to be a tremendous investment for the city to do to just get those facilities in place. Can you kind of talk about?
Yeah, actually, got a great location for that. You had the main sewer lines along the road on that property. So the sewer access is accessible. It's great. 16-inch diameter water. Just suddenly forcing a water line down River Road, so you can have a 12-inch water line service that area, which is great. So and electric, we have possible everything down there. We have the power company that does the three-phase in that area, which is stable. So all utilities are there, and they're on the other side of the tracks.
There's nothing you need to get.
Yeah, everyone's water.
All that stuff,
which is huge.
Right. Yeah, everything's right there.
So cost wise, I mean, I know it'd be your best guess, and assuming we've got 3 or 4 restrooms, I think maybe 5 restrooms called out. We'll have water fountains, I'm sure, in various places. Um, Sewer lines, water lines, electric lines, everything that we're looking at installing infrastructure wise. Do you have any idea of cost wise to the city that would be?
Your utility access would be your minimum cost.
We already have. Craig and his team did a wonderful job this past year installing water lines to a lot of that area. We also took excessive steps into putting electrical service down there in some capacity with future plans in the near future to upgrade
say one thing. I got to keep in mind that it's a great kid, great family. I travel a lot. So every time I go to it's it costs me $35. You know, got a bike, so you rent an extra. Whatever. Got a you got a money, hotels, food, drink. Back in the early this complex, road. Back in the early '70s, there was now. Or say it one because city Vienna, right so now that time Grand Central was too. Right? What's happened to this city? What's happened? Now the city chose that time to put money developer out. And I think that's probably we've already seen it in areas, especially a few years ago. We actually had we had terrible did some upgrading on the bus. Now it's every weekend seems like a festival or something. So that goes in strong. Yeah, you got houses and some developers or something. They're very engaged with people come to them and say, hey, my parents are they're mad at it's going to grow. What you do down there, you might invest in that. The next 20 years, money is very well invested. You got to make that investment. Bring families back. It's a great park, great area. What's supposed to do area is keep families here and get just make money. Bring my daughter down right now. Investment. She's down there. She's pretty good. She's on the news actually tonight. You guys get a chance to watch out. She's on the news. She's a teacher. So it's limited.
She has some outstanding.
She does. She's very her other daughter. Yeah. So Jackson, everybody working hard to put people's to see. And not investing in retail companies. You know, we pay roads, funding. City didn't when I started here was 68,000. Sure, many
And so that was going to too, because I'd actually wrap it up yet. Because I intended to ask you to come up and address the balance. And the same thing, you know, because we have 30 years experience, they mean the same thing. You know, and so I'm going to bring you on the spot too and say, you know, in terms of us trying to understand as a council how fiscally responsible this is, what other benefits, and what your attitude is. You've seen it all these years of service to the city. You know, what we haven't heard from you as to your thoughts and the advice on this problem. I'd like to hear that.
And that was she means. Well, land. Thank you, Mr.
Well,
Vince.
that is kind of like the here.
So obviously, I believe you have to spend money to make money. I think that's very true.
Thanks, Randy.
Also, I'm extremely conservative, and I, I think our cash reserves. I think Vienna is in amazing shape. But as far as our budget, it's really tight. It's really tight. For example, we can't really afford in our budget to like make payments on. But there are things that a city can do. You can, for example, years ago we built a police department, and when we built a police
police department, city council passed a police fee. And the police fee paid bond payment to build the police. And so one of the things that you can pass a fee for, and I'm just giving you, I'm not saying you guys are going to be out there. I'm just telling you options of what you can do. You can pass a fee that would make a payment for a recreation facility that by state code something can be done. You can also go out to the bond market and that would be put out for and vote on it. It's like an excess levy, like our bus levy, and whatever amount, small amount goes on the property taxes, and that much a month. So those are just options. I don't know if you're asking me to give a specific number that you think I'm comfortable with.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
Your thoughts.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as making a payment within our current budget, I don't think it's there. I don't think it's there. But that doesn't mean there aren't options based on what you have to do.
Do you think by adding the facility, the city generates higher revenue, giving us
Sure,
excess funds to?
I think that's the economic impact study. I think that tells you, yeah, it brings people in. Now, hotel in Vienna, so that's not hotel revenue isn't going to be huge for us. But restaurants, stop at Hot Club. I don't know. I think it's prudent that we spend.
Do you consider that? Do you consider that risky like as far as not risky for the city to
I have an amount.
preemptively invest in
So
something?
I think there is a line in the sand for me, where I think I would be comfortable going down to, but that doesn't mean that that's your same comfort level when you vote on it. I think Harry said it. You have to keep yourself open. There is a ARC grant that's $2 million that requires $1 million match. So you have to consider those things when you're saying, okay, is that you have to leave yourself open to having those dollars to make those matches if they become available. So, maybe you don't want to just throw $4 million into the project. Maybe you want to throw two, and to make sure that you have the money still available to have for those types of matches. I just think there's a balance there that needs to be achieved. And also, I don't think anybody's really talked about the cost of running the facility, which is going to be a city cost that will be on hold, right? Build the senior center, there's an ongoing cost. And I think those are important numbers to have for final decisions.
Is that if we didn't have a budget or we didn't have to Mr. Opportunity, we didn't have something set up? I think, and it's everybody here is sure had this thought at one point in time. The last thing we want to see is a facility on the river with fines growing on it because the city can't afford to maintain or have programs.
I really don't have any idea what it takes. Research needs to be done. It's Morgantown paying to maintain that facility. Those are things I think still need to be decided.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. And Amy, thanks for mentioning the cost of the facility. Um, you know, when events do happen there, and the size of the facility, we could sit, we look at like 2,500, 3,000 facility size. So, okay, I get you. So, I'm just throwing out numbers. If you could get 3,000 people there, and since it's going to be fenced in, things like that, your average ticket price is $50. You're looking at 150,000. And events, you may not have that every week. You may have it once, twice a year. But money like that can definitely help. So I agree with Amy. I have no idea what the maintenance costs would be. I'm sure when we get to that point, you're going to have to explore, similar to what we did in the economic study, what kind of events we're going to have, what we're going to charge, etc. Set some of those costs.
And it's not anyone else. All right. So what I want to do is again give what I have seen as a kind of like a high overview of all of these things. And Amy and I spend conversation you know on the city budget and city finances every day. We look at where we're spending, what we're spending, how we're spending, new revenue sources that are potentially coming in, and how we can effectively manage the city finances and be responsible with what we're spending. And we have those conversations all the time. Had one just today about that. So where is my kind of direction that I see going with this? I look and I've used the example that the drawing that Thrasher did. If and you date yourself when you say that, did anybody sit down with the Sears Roebuck or J.C. Penney catalog and go through and mark all the stuff that you wanted? By the time you do that, your parents have a list of $100,000 worth of stuff you want, and your mom and dad are then responsible for looking at that list and saying, okay, this is what we can effectively spend. I love this drawing, and I love the rendering, and I love the potential. And if money were no object, 100%, I would say start building tomorrow. But that's not the case. We have to be responsible for city funds, and we have to get a balance between what the city and council wants and what we need. That is my job sitting in my office, balancing wants and needs. So when we look at wants and needs, before I can look at wants, I have to focus on the needs so that we have a clear perspective of what we're going into. So, first of which, infrastructure is always a big concern and question to individuals, and I believe we owe it to the city to put considerable funds toward our infrastructure. It is my intention to come to the Budget and Finance Committee and to this council and to ask for anywhere from $250 to $325,000 for the next 4 years, including this one, which would take a budget revision to go towards infrastructure improvements as a whole um, that we can spend. That's roads, that's stormwater, that's the various things we have to tackle. That would come out of our reserve. As Amy said, we don't have the funds. Just budget that, but those are funds over the course of the next 4 years, and including this year, that I would like to see go towards infrastructure improvements. We owe it to our residents, we owe it to our businesses to make good on what should have been going on for the past 30 years, and that's to improve roads, improve drainage, put the money where it needs to be. So if you look at that, that is a considerable amount of money over the course of the next 4 years. Just looking at increases, that could be anywhere from $1 million to $1.5 million that we would put towards infrastructure improvements, taking care of those things that we need to take. There are also other initiatives that we have discussed that we would like to see come to fruition, and that's going to take additional funds as well. Jim and I have talked at length about offering child care programs and incentives to Vienna residents, and I want to see that happen come sooner rather than later. We also have initiative with our small businesses that we want to put additional funds in. That particularly in the way of enhancing from 28th Street to 34th Street, in the way of offering either low cost loans, grants to businesses, facade money, whatever that may be, and how that looks, so that we can revitalize a very important part of our city. That's going to take funds as well. So, in looking at that, these are all projects that I hope to push through and to work with council to be able to get done, so that we can better take care of our uh, residents and businesses. So now, when we look at we address the needs of our city, now we get into the wants of our city. The wants are what we see before us. Um, I have a list of priorities that I have looked at this that I um, in my own personal opinion, look to see what are or what my priority would be. Those have been uh, not necessarily in specific order, but in priority: the restrooms, walking path, boat access, then the multi-use facility. Uh, I know that we all, want to see some type of facility that goes down there, but for us, putting city money in, I believe our resources first need to go into the things that need to be there in place before a multi-use facility can be built. That is the infrastructure at Spencer's Landing. That is the restrooms. That is a walking path. Those types of things, and most of all, I see a priority of giving the city river access. We know that the city has asked for years to be able to launch a boat somewhere in Vienna. Uh, my focus in a lot of things is river access, turning this community into a premier riverfront city that individuals can utilize the one great amenity that we have, and that is the Ohio River. Getting people to the river, getting people on the river, getting people to enjoy the river. That is the great amenity that we have that I believe if we tap into, we are going to pull a great deal of people to this community. If we look at what we have at Spencer's Landing in uh, conjunction with 12th Street, the potential property behind the mall, we have a huge opportunity to develop those areas in ways to pull people here to enjoy the river. Now, I know that the event venue is obviously a large focal point for a lot of people, and we talk about concerts and those various things. Uh, I'm of a personal belief that we need to put our money into those amenities that we know everybody in our community is going to utilize. Then resource and try to fund the larger project, the big chunk of that, which will be the multi-use facility, and trying to look for earmarks, grants, donors, and what have you. But to me, the river is the important asset, that we have in getting that river access. I have a number that I am comfortable with, and I've talked with Amy about, and that number in regards to what the city would commit of its own funds sits anywhere between $2 million and $2.5 million of committed funds from the city, is what we've looked at. Now that doesn't mean 2.2 million or 2.5 million in the addition to $4 million worth of loans. I am in no way in favor of a 30-year loan or a 40-year loan to be able to fund a project, and I'm not really keen about taking any loans out to fund these projects, especially when we have infrastructure needs that need to be addressed. Uh, that's where I'm at in looking at that. I know that we've all given various opinions. That doesn't mean that any of our opinions are greater than the other. Um, but I have to ensure that my focus is on addressing needs, then addressing wants, and I believe that this is a healthy balance between needs and wants, um, and that gets us our city what we want. I agree. Well, Tony said that we could very easily get some of the low hanging fruit and meet some of the city's needs in the way of the restrooms and the smaller items with picnic pavilions and walking trails, and that can be easily done. Then on those large ticket items, example the multi-use facility, that's where we buckle down and really go after the the outside money from grants, earmarks, or what have you. So that's uh, my perspective in a nutshell, and kind of the direction that, or not kind of, it is the direction that I'm leaning towards heavily in trying to achieve.
I just love this council. Everybody is so considerate of one another, and Mary, you're a great leader. I think we've discussed this as far as we can discuss it this evening. Maybe we should set up a community meeting over at the community building to discuss it further. Since we can't make any motions tonight, and everybody said their given their thoughts. I would move.
If there are no other comments, this meeting is adjourned.